Greetings, football fans, and welcome to the special pre-draft edition of the ONETA Football Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. Now, today, we're going away from our Thursday model because draft night is Thursday, so you're going to get the ONETA show, the OG flagship show, goes to Thursday just this week because you get football today, Tuesday, 23rd, before draft night. Now, going into that though, we have a specialty thing today because not one, not two, 3-round mock draft here today for you. So what I'm going to be doing for you is simple. We're going to go through the entire round one with trades and everything that I've got cooked up for you. And then I'm going to go team by team, giving you 2 and 3. So that's where we're going to go. So rounds 2 and 3 are going to be post, and it's just going to be this is who they took with trades or whatever the case may be. That is how we're going to do today's draft. So without further ado, let's begin. On the clock, we all know what it is. With the first pick in this year's draft, the Chicago Bears, they're taking Caleb Williams, quarterback, USC. Let's be honest here, friends. There's nothing more that can be said. Caleb Williams is going to be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears this season. And if the Bears don't fuck it up, they are going to have one hell of a prospect and a future in their hands because the Bears are I should say the Bears are special. Caleb Williams is special. The Bears could be special with Caleb Williams as long as they don't screw it up, as I said before. So number 1, Caleb Williams, USC. We move on. Now, I didn't really think this is where the draft started with pick number 2, but seemingly from reports, we have some spice here. However, I stayed pat with what seems to be the most logical case, which is I have, with the second pick this year, Washington takes Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU. I think he's by far the best quarterback outside of Caleb Williams in this draft, and apparently from good sourcing, there's no way at 2 Washington is going to take Drake May, which is the only other logical conclusion. Although J.J. McCarthy's always lurking around in the dark for a lot of these teams, apparently, I do not see that being the case. I still think they just make do with Jaden Daniels, and make do, I mean get a new franchise quarterback out of it. So at number 2, Jaden Daniels, quarterback LSU. Now another one. At pick 3, I have the Patriots staying pat. Staying in place, picking. So with the third pick, I have Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina. Now here's the difficulty here. It seems like New England is open for business for a trade. Who trades? I don't know. That could be the Giants. That could be Minnesota. Denver if they get crazy. If Jaden Daniels falls to 3, you better bet your ass Las Vegas would go into that discussion if they could. But nonetheless, you are looking at a viable option in a trade. But according to the great newsmakers of NFL media, such as Tom Pelissero or Adam Schefter, it sounds like they're still going to stay and pick because they need a quarterback. So that's why I went with Drake May. I stayed chalk here for the first 3 picks for the most part from what we've been seeing for the past month. We go on to number 4, and the chalk continues. 4th pick, 2024 NFL Draft. The Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. With possibly the only argument being an offensive tackle. And I still don't think that's the case. The only can't-miss quarterback. The only can't-miss quarterback in the draft, or the only can't-miss prospect in this year's draft, is Marvin Harrison Jr. That's it. Nothing else can take that spot. So if the Cardinals need wide receiver help, they have their quarterback, they have their offensive tackle. Those are the only two logical positions to take outside of what they need in Arizona. Ergo, and those are the only two positions that are loaded at the top of the draft. That's more what I was trying to say. That they already have those. So wide receiver is the most logical option. Apparently they're open for discussion as well, and everyone's giving them a lot of credit, deservedly so, that, hey man, you know, they manipulated the draft so well last year and did everything right. And that's correct. They did, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily what they want to do or should do this year. Every draft is different. Every draft is different. And it's about what you see on the board. I don't think there's a better prospect in terms of safety. And when I say safety, I do not mean the position. I mean cannot miss is Marvin Harrison Jr. And the Cardinals could sure as hell use something that is a surefire hit when you have Kyler Murray as your quarterback, Paris Johnson's your tackle, and you're trying to start the new era of the Arizona Cardinals. You go forward with Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, here's where the draft gets somewhat interesting, and it's all about where the pieces fall. At 5, I have a trade. So, at pick number 5, I have the Los Angeles Chargers trading pick number 5 to the Minnesota Vikings for pick 11, pick 23, and a 2025 fifth-round selection. I do believe that the compensation should theoretically be higher. However, Minnesota does lack picks next year due to the trades that they made with Houston in order to get that additional first-round pick. Wait, who am I talking about? Is it Houston? Whoever they traded with. I can't remember in the moment. I believe it was Houston, though. So, to get that additional first and make the trade, they had to give away a future second. That was only to load up to get a quarterback. This plan could go straight to hell if the right quarterback falls or the right team trades ahead of them. But the most logical scenario in most people's minds, mine included, is that the most crucial pivot point at the top of the draft is Los Angeles, because they don't necessarily need, their team needs and their board fit and their coach's philosophy does not fit what is at the top of the draft that is worthwhile the value. So get out of there, get more additional capital to rebuild that team that's kind of been gutted in a lot of ways in Los Angeles since Jim Harbaugh took over as the head coach. Go get yourself some more draft capital to address your needs and allow Minnesota to go up and get the guy that they want. That's what makes good trades, is both teams are happy or can live with the trade at the end of the day. So I have them getting that extra fifth. I think it should be a little bit more because I always think there's a quarterback tax included in everything. However, to only move back really 6 picks, still get a top 10 talent, because some of these quarterbacks are not going to be top 10 talents that are drafted in the top 10 theoretically. To get a player of that magnitude at 11 that's really going to help your team out and get an additional first round pick and a pick next year, it's a worthwhile trade. And if you use the Rich Hill chart, which is theoretically the best chart we as the general populace have access to in terms of fair trade evaluations, in terms of draft capital, that is your best bet. That is what I use to get the point totals for those trades. That is why I have number 5. Minnesota Vikings go get their guy, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. And simply said, they need a guy to throw to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They have it now in J.J. McCarthy. Now, pick 6 is pretty chalk. The Giants have no skill position players. There's not a single threat on that offense to score. So go get one of the most threatening players available. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU is the pick at number 6. The explosion, yak, touchdown ability, the speed, everything's there for Neighbors, and may be able to salvage a little bit out of whatever quarterback is starting there for the Giants this year. So that is why I have Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU at 6. to the Giants. At pick 7. Pick 7. Went with Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame, for the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is being talked about as a sneaky trade out candidate, which I actually really, really understand and appreciate. I'm a huge fan of trading down in a draft if it behooves you, so to speak, if it fits what you need and what you have available to you. I'm always a fan of that. And yes, I grew up a Green Bay Packer fan where every year is, who are we going to take at this? Really, we're going to take them 10 picks back because that's what Green Bay does. They trade down. However, you have a young quarterback to fix. You need cornerstone pieces of a franchise because I don't think there is a single one there in Tennessee. You may have one if things work out with Will Levis, according to the Titans. Although I was not a big Will Levis guy, they believe that they might have the quarterback of the future. If you have that, you have to protect that and continue to build. You do that through the offensive line. So you now have 2 viable pieces on the offensive line with Joe Alt, Peter Skoronski. It's a good pick. Give the kid a chance to make a play. That is what you need in Tennessee. That's what they do. Now, pick 8. Here's something fun. This is not what I have, but apparently they'd be interested in Michael Penix Jr. I would love nothing more than for chaos purposes, the Falcons to take Michael Penix Jr. at 8 just to see what the fuck's going to happen next. However, that's not what this isn't what this mock is about. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible, read the tea leaves, and see what could be done. At 8, I have Atlanta taking Dallas Turner, edge, Alabama. The traits are off the chart. Although he is not the best pass rusher right now in this draft class, in my opinion, and other evaluators' process, he has the best traits to be successful long-term with a very, very high floor, meaning he's going to be a very good, consistent player no matter what. His low-end prospects are still extremely high with a floor that high. Dallas Turner's a good pick at 8. I can understand it at the very least. So they go edge, and they finally take an edge rusher for the first time in like 8 years, even though everyone's always been saying they need to take an edge rusher. They need to take an edge rusher. They need to take an edge rusher. So we will see how they do further when we get to rounds 2 and 3. But for right now, they do what they should have probably been doing the last 4 or 5 years and finally take an edge rusher in round 1. Now, pick number 9, here's where I go a little bit wild. Pick number 9 is held by the Chicago Bears currently. However, the Bears only have 4 picks in this entire draft. And they're not high-end picks. It's 2 firsts and a third, which is great, and then just like kind of no man's land. And it's a low third, if I recall correctly. So I needed to get some more draft capital for them because although the Bears have a better roster than given credit for, they still are not just one piece away from being super successful. So I have Chicago trading out with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So at the 9th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington. Now with this pick, Chicago trades number 9. They go back 8 picks to 17, but they also pick an additional third at 96. They pick up a 5th, and they pick up a 7th with 153 and 236 respectively. Now you may say, why would you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? It's because of the depth of the wide receiver draft that I did this one and the lack of draft capital. This team is still far away. If you look at their team needs, they have shiny objects in places, or they have solid depth, but they don't have a lot of outliers, great picks. Now, what do they have? They have Montez Sweat. They have DJ Moore. They just traded for Keenan Allen. They signed DeAndre Swift, so the running back is pretty set. Cole Kmet is a good tight end, not a great tight end, but a good tight end. You have pieces, and you're not going to have Caleb Williams. That's great. But your defense is still further away than you'd like it to be. And with the draft being loaded at wide receiver talent, as much as I love Rome Odunze, because I adore Rome Odunze, which is why I have Jacksonville going up to get him, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen strike me more as Roma Dunze guys than the player I have Chicago taking later on, which we will get to. But that is why I think Roma Dunze is incredibly special. I love Roma Dunze. I love watching his tape. I love his character from all reports. The guy just seems like the guy. Chop his leg off and he's going to say, it's fine, coach, I'll go in anyways. That seems to be Roma Dunze, which is why Jacksonville, who has no help whatsoever at the wide receiver room outside of Christian Kirk, and Christian Kirk, all due respect to him, he had a good season 2 years ago. He's still a respectable receiver. He's not a game breaker. Roma Dunze has the skill to take over a game from time to time and going to go be a really reliable target for Trevor Lawrence, which is why I have them going up and saying, fuck it, we need a receiver. We're taking one with Dunze. Now at 10, this might be controversial to some. I don't know how it could be, though. At 10, the New York Jets select Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State. I love Olu Fashanu. I think he has the highest ceiling and highest potential of any offensive tackle in this draft class. He's not as safe as Joe Alt, but he's an incredibly safe pick, in my opinion, who is most likely going to pan out. The Jets are in a really sticky situation because from the vast majority of their roster moves, it's all in, all in, all in, which is fine. They don't have a second rounder. And if you're telling me in this draft, okay, you have the option, you can take a third round tackle or you can take a third round receiver and roll the dice on what's going to pan out for you better, I will always go, well, screw it. I'll take the third round receiver and the first round tackle, especially with the guy of Olu's athleticism and size, strength. You need to think about, number one, keeping Aaron Rodgers upright so he can throw. Aaron Rodgers has made a lot of ordinary receivers look good, first and foremost. Second of all, you do need to think about life after Aaron Rodgers. There is no, I love Aaron to death. I've already said it. I say it every podcast. I'm a Packer fan. But his idea of, I can play for 3 more years and that's what I want to do, that's tremendous. And for football's sake, I hope it happens. But there's no guarantee he's even going to finish this year with the Achilles injury that he just suffered. And although it's improved, the offensive line of the Jets still isn't like tremendous. It's much better with their free agent additions, but you don't know if Tyron Smith's going to be able to play a full year. It's just a safer bet to help you now and in the future to go get the offensive tackle, not the pass catcher. So that is why I have them going Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State. At 11, as a result from the trade down from 5, the Los Angeles Chargers, they picked Talisi Fuaga, offensive tackle, Oregon State. You want an offensive tackle that just wants to beat the shit out of people and maul people, you want Talisi Fuaga. He's a right tackle, which is more beneficial. You already have an all-pro left tackle in Rashawn Slater, and now you go get a bad motherfucker on the other side to really bookend protect your quarterback and to run those power runs that have made Jim Harbaugh successful everywhere he has gone. That is truly the success of the Harbaugh family, is the power run game from Jim all the way up to his father. You need to take that into account so you get good value and you get to still help reform your team in the image of what your philosophy is. It's incredibly smart in my opinion. That's why I go to Talisi Fuaga. Now at pick 12, cruising a lot faster than usual here, folks. At pick 12, I have another trade. I have Denver trading out from 12, and they trade pick 12 for pick 14, 150, and 170 in this draft to New Orleans. New Orleans is not loaded with draft capital, but this is Mickey Loomis we're talking about. Mickey Loomis is all about making the deal and living on the edge. If you want further proof of that, go look at their salary cap situation for the last 6 years. They are living on the edge as much as possible down in New Orleans, and as much as it's kind of crazy, I do respect it for how well they've balanced it for the most part. Now, having said that, they still have a lot of problems to fix in New Orleans. Would they be willing to give up decent draft capital? Maybe, maybe not. However, They need to go address their offensive tackle position a lot. They need to go take care of their needs as much as possible. In order to do that, you need to go get a tackle you believe in. And while this tackle class is deep within the first round, if you're at 14, you're in kind of in no man's land. And what I mean by that is this. You are right on the fringe of being able to take the guy you really, really want. But you can't unless it perfectly falls to you. However, you are also not deep enough to feel the need to settle. I think it's best go get the guy you probably want. And tackle that a lot of guys are talking about is Amarius Mims, due to the size and the athleticism out of Georgia. And really bookend your team. So I have at 12 Amarius Mims, offensive tackle at Georgia, going to New Orleans. Which is why you got to take care of those bookends. You got to do some things. And it's an easy trade back. It's only 2 spots up and 2 spots back for Denver. There's history. Obviously, Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, they know each other well. Those kind of deals happen all the time in the draft and all the time in the NFL is, oh, I know you and I go back, let's get a trade done and help each other out kind of thing. Now, we go to 13. To the Las Vegas Raiders. The autumn wind is a pirate, but the winter wind isn't a winner. They need to try to fix that. How do you fix that? How do you get to playoff games? How do you win playoff games? You have yourself a quarterback. There are reports now coming out they like Michael Penix a lot, and I agree with them, which is why at 13 I have the Las Vegas Raiders selecting Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington. It's unconventional. It might be a little bit high for him. However, you're seeing J.J. McCarthy, who probably belongs in the teens, go at 5. Michael Penix Jr. at 13 is a little bit more redeemable in my opinion as well. I really do like Michael Penix's game. There are things he needs to fix, but he plugs and plays well as an NFL starter more than pretty much almost anybody else in this class outside of maybe Caleb Williams. Simply because of the way Washington's offense was structured, how they do things there. Penix has the ability to stretch the field and attack downfield. It's classic Raiders motif. But the cool part about having a defensive coach is the fact that defensive coaches either want sure things, but they also want things that are typically very hard to defend because they know how hard they are to defend because they're a defensive guy. It's hard to defend deep downfield with a great passer downfield. And it stretches a defense out so much more if you have to stretch 5-10 yards deeper than if you have a guy who has a pop gun arm who can only dink and dunk. You load the boxes up, you load the first 10 yards up, and you say, all right, fine, beat us deep, have fun. It's very, very important to do. If you need a better example, go look at Miami. Miami got guys with speed so they could help Tua Tagovailoa develop a little bit more and be more dangerous. Because when they didn't have those speed guys, Miami was shit with Tua Tagovailoa offensively. When you have the ability to stretch the field more, it's so much more valuable. And I think if anybody's going to know about that, it's Antonio Pierce and the Las Vegas Raiders. They want deep ball. They want deep intermediate passing. Michael Penix Jr. can do that. So that is why at 13, they have Michael Penix Jr., quarterback of Washington, coming over to Vegas to help him out. At 14, we have Denver. And Denver is in a unique spot because this was done for a later move, was the trade back to add additional draft capital. Because although they do have pretty much a full draft here outside of a second, they don't have a second round pick this year. Denver has more draft capital than you know, but they still need a little bit more to make some moves that they want to make. But at 14, you trade down 2 picks, you still get a good player, and you add that additional draft capital in case you need to go make a trade. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I have them going J.C. Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, you could have just took Amarius Mims or you could have took any other tackle left on the board. Yeah, you could have. But when you need to prioritize things and to find the value in the board and take your guy, you need to have the pieces to manipulate the board in your favor. So you accrue draft capital if the guy you want isn't valuable enough and you think you can wait for him. If he's not valued at 12, you go back so you can go get him later at the right price, and then you can still go forward with the rest of your draft. It's just wise. That's why I have them going back. And if you saw my What Would I Do draft, I have them trading back 3 times in the first round just to accrue almost another draft because it's about draft capital, because in a lot of ways, Denver is kind of bereft of talent. They overachieved last year if you actually look at their roster. Sean Payton actually did a hell of a job coaching that team up to get to where they were. Think of what's going to happen when he can get another draft class in to help him out. It's a big deal in Denver to do. So that's why I have them J.C. Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama. Shore up that offensive line a little bit more. Give whoever is going to play the quarterback position, whether it is Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, or a potential new player out of this draft, have the chance to go help them out with J.C. Latham right away. Pick 15. My God, I don't know what words were coming out of my mouth. Pick 15. I have Indianapolis taking Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia. I love Brock Bowers. I think he's the number 3 player on my entire board. I adore Brock Bowers' game. It was just hard to place him with a tight end. I think his first logical pick spot is 10 to the Jets. If the Chargers were desperate, I could see them taking him early, but I don't see them taking him over a tackle. The Colts just drafted a quarterback. Think about that, though. They need help on the defensive backfield. That's important, and they can address that in this draft. But your priority is making your quarterback position work. You have a developing quarterback who is raw. You know what helps raw players gain confidence to not just use their physical abilities to the fullest all the time and take the smart plays? Players they can trust to make plays themselves. Part of the reason you have such a wonderful history of guys that could do anything being able to learn how the NFL works is when they get themselves a reliable wide receiver, or a lot of cases tight end, that shows them, hey, an 8-yard route that can turn into 24 yards is just as valuable as you just slinging it down the field and trying to make it work when it may not work. That is super valuable. You look at it. You're currently seeing it. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Sure, he had Tyreek Hill, but what has he developed into? Right there. Tom Brady had a better arm than people give him credit for. What was his most widely used weapon throughout his entire career, not just even in the Gronk years? Tight end position. Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark. Yeah, he had Marvin Harrison. Yeah, he had Reggie Wayne. They're Hall of Fame players. I'm not disputing that. But who gives you confidence over the middle to make those safer plays at times to check the ball down? Tight end. Dallas Clark was there for him. Hell, Brett Favre, Mark Shimura, Keith Jackson, Bubba Franks, those kind of guys. He would throw it to anybody underneath if they were open and he felt comfortable doing it. John Elway, Shannon Sharp. These things are incredibly important. The development of quarterback. You need to go do that, and you need to go make a play in Indianapolis, and you can take some attention off Michael Pittman Jr. Ergo, you take Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia here for the Colts. Pick 16, Leatu Latu, edge, UCLA. I could really see a case for Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle here. Totally buy that. And I would understand it, and I would support that decision if I were Seattle. However, part of the reason Seattle has been faltering the last couple years is they'll have a great defensive backfield and they won't have a great pass rush or a consistent pass rush. That's been going on for the past 5-6 years. You need to go be able to go fix those issues in Seattle. You want to have a great team that can go attack, go take the best thing that the offense has and just ruin it. You need edge rushers, you need pressure. And then that forces someone to go into your backfield and make a horrible play that your defensive backfield can make because you're Seattle and you have good defensive backfield players. You need an edge presence, and that's why I gave them the best edge rusher in this class, Leatu Latu. Now, 17. This is a result of the trade. Now, the board fits perfectly for this trade, which is another reason I did it. After the trade with Jacksonville, Chicago picks up 2 other draft picks. Sorry, 3 other draft picks, 96, 153, and 236. Pick up a 3rd, you pick up a 5th, you pick up a 7th, help yourself, give yourself the full draft again just to move down 8 spots, and you get someone who I think fits a little bit better of what you need in Chicago. And that is Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, LSU. I would find it hard to believe the Bears would not take another piece in this draft to go help their new quarterback, Caleb Williams. But when I look at Rome Odunze, who I just gushed over, I love Rome Odunze. I think he plays more similarly to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And while that is great, those are 2 super dependable guys over the last couple of years in the NFL. You want to have different variations of a wide receiver room in many people's eyes, mine included. Brian Thomas Jr. has more height than both those guys, more speed than both those guys, more explosion from both those guys. He's a little bit raw, especially compared to those 2. But the explosion and the big play capability is far greater in Brian Thomas Jr. than it is with Rome Odunze from I'm going to break one and go. Rome Odunze has big playability. I just said that, and I think the world of him. But when it comes down to straight pivot speed, blast, and explode for a touchdown, Brian Thomas Jr. is more that guy. And it gives another ability for a vertical route downfield, stretch the defense, let DJ Moore and Keenan Allen work over the middle, Cole Kmet to work over the middle, free up a little bit of those rushing lanes. It's a smart selection, and it varies up the wide receiver room in Chicago a lot, which is why I have them taking Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, LSU. 18. The Cincinnati Bengals do what Cincinnati does. They stay right where they are. They take the guy that they want to take, and one fell right into their lap. They need corner help. They need defensive help in Cincinnati. There are 2 things Cincinnati needs. Offensive line help, because no matter what they do, somehow, never works to protect Joe Burrow. They need to protect Joe Burrow. But 2, their defensive backfield needs work. It'd be really nice if the Bengals didn't have to outscore everybody 42-35 all the time. Sure, it's great that you can do it. That's awesome. But you don't want to have to rely on that week in and week out. You go get yourself, in many people's estimation, the best corner in this league. Or not in this league, my apologies. That would be way too much. The best corner in this draft. Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo. I like Terrion Arnold just a hair more. However, Quinyon Mitchell is thought to be far more of a safer island-type corner in comparisons to Terrion Arnold, which I could understand. You go take more of the sure thing, take the guy straight from in-state, a little bit more physical, a little bit more raw ability. Quinyon Mitchell at pick 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Pick 19, this is the most chalk draft of chalk draft here. You need to replace Aaron Donald, and it's impossible to do, but you take the best possible option. I go Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas here at number 19 for the LA Rams. There are viable options here. I think this is actually a sneaky quarterback pick here at 19. Just with Matthew Stafford growing in age and not being able to necessarily stay as healthy as he once was. But my big thing here is this. Defense. You can make any offense seemingly work with Sean McVay. If you don't believe me, look at the past decade. But here is what LA is losing. They are losing the greatest defensive tackle of all time. And arguably more important than all of that, the entire heart, soul, and structure of your defense. Everything on that defense ran around Aaron Donald. You can't replace Aaron Donald. I want to make that very clear. It is not possible to do unless you go back in history and you take one of the other great defensive tackles in history, like a Mean Joe Green, like an Alan Page. However, what you can do is get a great defensive tackle prospect that has a high-end motor that just wants to fight and attack people and shore up that line of scrimmage and go after the quarterback. And that is Byron Murphy, who I really like out of Texas. Do the best to help yourself out, take the best available option, and really help plug the hole that you just lodged, which was a black hole in Aaron Donald's retirement. Now, pick number 20. I have something a little bit unconventional here. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. This isn't unconventional, but I have Pittsburgh trading back. Usually they stay pat, just like Cincinnati. They stay where they are. I have them trading back with Dallas. So here's what I have. Pittsburgh trades pick 20 for 24, 174, and a 2025 fourth rounder. So it's a little bit of value. You get a fifth and a fourth out of it. Smart play on Pittsburgh because I think they're a year away from being a true contender if everything shapes up well. Dallas here, I think, is going to... One thing I will say about Dallas. Dallas has drafted very well over the past couple years. I have to give them that credit. However, Dallas for the last... If there's any team that's going to make a move based on the stupidity of media or the accurate statements of media in this case, it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's what Dallas does. Dallas loves the flair. They love being part of the conversation. It's part of the whole business model for Jerry Jones. But here's why I did this. You have a bunch of sneaky teams in front of them that could all argue a good receiver. They don't need them. Like Miami doesn't need a wide receiver. Philly, maybe, especially with A.J. Brown being more a bit of a malcontent. And that's all speculative. I don't know that for sure. Because all due respect to him, I don't know the guy. I don't know what he's like in the locker room. So I'm not going to buy all that. But apparently he could be very unhappy in Philly. Chargers need one. Then you have teams behind them. Arizona, you never know. They could trade up for another one. Just say, fuck it, we're going to do whatever. Buffalo's back there. Baltimore's back there. San Francisco, if they trade away Brandon Ayuk, definitely could be there, and that's a possibility on draft night, folks. Kansas City, this is where the range in which you could get a Pittsburgh to trade back. All these guys can come up. So it's not just, we got to get in front of these two teams. You need to go secure your position so you don't get jumped by other people in the back. That's important. So I have them going in the flash move, and they take Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas. One, that's such a Dallas move. But two, it's a logical move for Dallas. Their entire offense, as I said it before in previous episodes of the pod, was CeeDee Lamb and CeeDee Lamb. That was it. You need other options on your offense. Need other abilities to go. Cannot just rely on one guy. Xavier Worthy adds speed element, a vertical element that even CeeDee Lamb doesn't have. Although CeeDee Lamb is definitely a great intermediate route runner. Not taking anything away from CeeDee Lamb. But when you can just go, okay, shore up him and we're good, it's a problem. Xavier Worthy's speed forces you to play him wisely and take attention away from CeeDee Lamb, which is why I really like it. It adds more options and more versatility to the Dallas offense, It's a wise selection. That's why I have them going up to go Xavier Worthy and secure their guy, secure their pick. Now we go to pick 21. I don't know. I could never see Miami going other than an interior offensive lineman here, or an offensive lineman in general. Teron Armstead is on his last legs. He always is for the past couple years. Great when he plays. Doesn't play as often as he needs to be. They just lost Robert Hunt. If you want to see a Tua Tagovailoa prove that he's not worth a contract, go have him play in an offensive line in Miami that's decimated right now. You want to see two speed receivers wasted because you can't get the ball to them? Play behind the current offensive line in Miami. Go get someone with versatility that can help you in multiple spots, especially to fill the needs that you have. And that's why I have Miami taking Graham Barton, offensive lineman, Duke. It's a good pickup. He can play guard for you if Armstead stays healthy. He does have tackle experience if he has to play tackle. He can move around the offensive line, fills the hole that you need. Has center experience as well. There are all these different things that you can do with Graham Barton, which is why I have him going to Miami. Now, here's another one that's just so fucking Philly. At pick 22, I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. As you already heard me say, I love Terrion Arnold. He's a great player. Great pickup for Philly. He has just a ball hawkish nature. But what's more Philly than just someone that doesn't deserve to go that far down, fall into them? Terrion Arnold's real range is somewhere between 11 and 20, if you really look at it. If he falls to 22, it wouldn't be crazy, but it shouldn't really happen. And of course, in typical Philly fashion, it happens straight to them. They need defensive backfield help. That was the worst part of their team last year. And then it was a bad compliment to their defensive line that's really underperformed the second half of the season. So go get a guy who just has a nose for the ball, making plays. Terrion Arnold, Alabama, help fix your defensive backfield. Make me dislike the Philadelphia Eagles even more than I already do because they get a player that I like. And that would hurt my feelings. Now, pick 23, as a result of the trade with Minnesota, this is the second pick, the LA Chargers. Now, a lot of people are going to naturally assume if they do pick up the second, that they got to go wide receiver. Oh, they're just so... They need wide receiver help. They need wide receiver help. They do. I want to make that very clear. But what was the Talisi Fuaga pick for? It was to shore up your identity, to be able to play the game you want to play. By the game you want to play, it's the game Jim Harbaugh wants to play. Without question, the LA Chargers need offensive skill positions. However, how does Jim Harbaugh win? It's in the trenches with the line of scrimmage. He has great offensive lines and great defensive lines. A really smart pickup here to help their defense out. You have two bookends, but you don't have much in the middle. Help create the wall, help do things to free up a little bit more pressure off of those edge players in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, who you are paying an arm and a leg for. How do you help and make that investment worthwhile? You get a defensive lineman that can plug up some of the stuff that's going to go their way. And I have them taking Jer'Zhan Newton or Johnny Newton, defensive lineman out of Illinois. He's a hell of a player by most people's account. Great at the point of attack, takes up pressure, plugs the hole well, does a lot of things that you want in a defensive lineman. And would it not be just the most Jim Harbaugh thing in the goddamn world to go, we need skill position players? Nope. We're getting trench players all day long. We're taking trench players. I could easily see that happening, and I wouldn't be shocked if it happens with the second pick. So that's why I have Jer'Zhan Newton, defensive lineman, Illinois. Now we're to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 24. as a result of the trade down from 20 with Dallas. Pittsburgh sees how the board's going. They understand they're probably, after all these guys fall, are still going to be able to get their guy because there's only one team that really may need to use that high of a draft pick for another offensive lineman. Which is why this one they go. Oh, breaking news. Literally as I said this. I'll get to that in a second. I'll tell you everybody about it. But they see that a lot of teams that could argue offensive line help here with a deep offensive line may have a player that they need or at a position of need fall to them that would be a wise decision. So that's why they take the trade back. And they still get their guy in Jackson Powers Johnson, offensive lineman, Oregon. He's a mauler. He's an athlete. Hell of a character guy as well. Fits that Pittsburgh blue collar mode so well and allows them to play more of that power game and dominate the offensive line. Trenches more, which is the Pittsburgh way. It's the Mike Tomlin way. It really helps them foster an identity. One of the things I think people forget about Pittsburgh and don't understand why they haven't been as successful as they have been in the past. Pittsburgh really hasn't had an identity in the last 7 years. What has Pittsburgh done in the past 7 years outside of TJ Watt being awesome that says this is the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because when their defense should be great, it falters. When you think their offense is ready to start moving, it falters. They haven't really struck an identity. They don't have that classic Pittsburgh identity about them, whether it's offensively or defensively, because Pittsburgh has history in both sides of the ball being phenomenal. But they lack an identity. You need to foster that, and you do that in the trenches, establishing your line of scrimmage, and allowing Russell Wilson to pass downfield to George Pickens. Allowing Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris those better running lanes up the gut, getting those hard-nosed runs. Do that with Jackson Powers Johnson, offensive lineman, Oregon. Now, at pick 25, my beloved Green Bay Packers, I have them staying pat at 25. However, will not be shocked if they trade back into the second round because that's what Green Bay does. And it'll be frustrating, to say the least, if it happens, but I get it. A lot of people have them going defensive backfield here, which I completely understand. However, if you look at sneaky needs and what they couldn't replace in free agency, they lost a lot of offensive linemen. They lost David Bakhtiari. They lost Josh Nijman. They lost John Running Jr. 3 key pieces to their offensive line. They still have Zach Tom. They still have Elgton Jenkins. They still have other pieces. However, as good as Green Bay is at developing players on the offensive line, it doesn't hurt to get a blue chip prospect that can do a lot of things. But I just listed a tackle, and a guard. A left tackle, a right tackle, and a guard. And Josh Nijman was their flex player who went into guard or center if needed. So really, any position across the offensive line, you lost in Green Bay. So I have them going away from what they normally do, which is defense on the first pick. I have them because the board fell to them here. Troy Fautanu, offensive lineman, Washington. Fautanu, again, really nice, versatile player. Has good experience at the tackle position. Has the athleticism to do that, but possibly not the size. A lot of people think he can kick into guard or center, which I think is exactly what Green Bay needs. If you have Elgton Jenkins on the left side, you have Zach Tom on the right, and then you can fill the holes of what you need there with a Troy Fautanu, it's a really smart pickup. And allows Green Bay to continue the versatility model that they've been building the last couple of years, with guys being interchangeable across the line and still functioning and giving success and continuing that pocket that's being built for Jordan Love to continue to develop and grow as a mainstay quarterback in the National Football League. I think it's a really smart pickup here, which is why they go Troy Fautanu, offensive lineman of Washington. I think this truly could be the first year in a long time they take an offensive lineman in the first round. or go offense in the first round outside of quarterback in the last 20 plus years, it seems, because that is the way the board fits well. Now we go on pick 26. From one bay, we go to Tampa Bay. From the northern bay, we go to the southern bay here. Tampa is in an interesting spot because they have sneaky needs, but they kind of have players all over the place. I was very tempted to give them other players, but they're happy here because they're going to take an edge player. They're going to take Jared Verse, edge, Florida State. Although I am not high on Verse. Other draft experts and analysts are very high on Jared Verse. Think he has a lot of potential to be a great player. If you have an edge player, one of the few that's considered a really good edge player in this draft class by many, in a weak edge class, and you have the ability to, he falls to you at 26, you don't have to trade anything for him, yeah, you take him and you run with him and you laugh. And it allows Vita Vea to be more of that run stuffer, create more of that wall. They just lost Shaq Barrett. Their defense does need help to continue to be able to contend in the South, especially with Atlanta now having a quarterback. The Saints hopefully shoring up their offensive line. You're going to need someone to attack that offensive line even more now. And who knows, Carolina could be functional this year. Who the hell knows? But here we have Jared Verse, edge, Florida State, going over to Tampa. Now, pick 27 at the Arizona Cardinals. It's an interesting proposition. They need help. Flat out. You just look at their roster, they need help. You just addressed the wide receiver position. However, there are other wide receivers on the board that are very good. There's a huge part of me, because I know Arizona has picked 35, that says, fuck it, double down. Go get another wide receiver. However, you have too many needs on this team and you have a defensive head coach that doesn't allow you to necessarily do something like that. Which is why I went here with Darius Robinson, edge, Missouri. Take a second to think about that one. With Darius Robinson, you have a guy who's skyrocketing up draft boards due to a Senior Bowl performance, do a lot of good positive things. With that being said, think about the needs of the Arizona Cardinals. You have a blue chip prospect, a lot of people are high on, who he got invited to the draft. That should tell you a lot about Darius Robinson. But you can now go get bookend pieces. You can go get your offensive mainstay to go with your quarterback. And now you have a defensive edge player that can maybe be a really big impact player for you and help everybody on your defense by creating pressure on opposing. Very important to do. It's something that I have a huge philosophy in, is that if you look at the 5 most valuable positions in the modern National Football League, it's quarterback, because they're the centerpiece of the entire team. It's offensive tackle to protect the center point of your team. It's wide receiver to help the quarterback, which is the centerpiece of your team, and score with the use of that centerpiece. It's the edge player to go attack the other team's centerpiece. And it's corner to go protect the outside of the field from the wide receiver that's going to help the other team's centerpiece. If you do this and get an edge player that you believe in, you have 4 of the centerpieces of your team. You have 4 of the most 5 vital positions in the modern National Football League. That's a big motivation here. And you know, corner slipped. Nate Wiggins hasn't been drafted yet. Cooper DeJean hasn't been drafted yet. Kool-Aid McKinstry hasn't been drafted yet. There are other guys that are higher second round guys. You have pick 35. You have pick 35 to address those needs. Plus, you have other picks higher up in the rounds that you can go and do something with. So if you're seeing that's how the board's falling, you have picks coming up soon, you take the edge player that's probably not going to make it to you, and you take the best corner available later if that is what your needs say you should do. Which is why I have them taking Darius Robinson, edge, out of Missouri. Now, pick 28, here's where I'm going to probably drive the internet insane. If there is a team who needs a wide receiver this year, outside of maybe Jacksonville, it is Buffalo. Buffalo needs to go get a wide receiver for Josh Allen. It is without question. You look at, if you watch Brandon Beane's press conference from, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago at this point. Brandon Beane pretty much told you, hey, we need to take a wide receiver in that draft. However, I went crazy here. I didn't take one. Because I looked at their defensive backfield, and they lost pretty much everybody. Jordan Poyer is no longer there. Micah Hyde is no longer there. Tre'Davious White's no longer there. They lost other pieces of that defensive backfield. They need a lot of help, and they need a lot of positional value there in this pick, which is why I went Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa. I think Cooper DeJean could play outside corner. But even if he can't play outside corner, he can play a really good nickelback, or he could move back to safety, and he'll be a vital contributor on your special teams. All of that is superb positional value for your needs. This is a needs pick that fits really well, and it's a value pick because the value is there in the positional value of the pick itself. There are wide receivers I believe in this range. However, this is a deep wide receiver class. You have a second round pick. You have other picks to go address your needs. However, you're not going to get a corner of a higher caliber than around this range. You got to take one now if that's what you feel the need is. Which is why I gave them Cooper DeJean, defensive back, Iowa. I picked number 29. I have Detroit shoring up the trenches whatsoever again. So I have them going Chop Robinson, edge, Penn State. Chop is very raw to a degree. I shouldn't say very raw, but he's a raw player. He needs more development. But he's a hell of an athlete, hell has a lot of those traits, and there's a good range for Chop to go. The Detroit Lions need help in their defensive backfield and their defensive line. You made a huge investment with Aiden Hutchinson 2 years ago. He's now becoming a centerpiece of your team. Detroit understands the value of the trenches. They have a great offensive line. They're trying to develop a defensive line. Get your bookends. Go get an edge player that's not going to be available to you here, which is why I gave them Chop Robinson, edge, Penn State. Pick number 30, the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is in a weird spot. They need offensive line help. They need defensive line help. They need wide receiver help, like always. They actually have more needs than people understand. I went and held, how did they score points and win games last year? It was offensively controlling line of scrimmage, controlling the ball, the development of Lamar Jackson as a passer. But you just lost half of your offensive line. You need to replenish it. You need to really revitalize your team, so to speak, on the offensive line and make sure you're not victim to the trenches of the AFC. So I gave them Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle. Good, versatile player, tough player, good hand usage, great body, good control of the offensive line with that pick. Bookend, one side of your line. Bookend, I've said it 1,000 times, I'm sorry. But shore up one side of your offensive line for your passer. That is the biggest thing that you have. Go take care of business. Understand your needs. That's what Baltimore can do, and it gets value out of a guy from Oklahoma in Tyler Guyton. Now, final two picks here in the first round. San Francisco If you look at the Super Bowl, we said it a lot in the past couple episodes. Super Bowl was lost in the trenches. Because outside of Trent Williams, San Francisco's line kind of got his ass kicked. They need to go shore that up. But really, it was their interior offensive line. It wasn't the edges. So I have them going up to a guy who a lot of people really like, and Zach Frazier, offensive lineman out of West Virginia. Versatile player, can go across that offensive line a lot, has good hand usage, good strength, nice body, prototypical for a lot of people, and I think has the athleticism to play there in San Francisco. It's a smart pick. Continue your domination of the line of scrimmage against the middle or good tiers, but not the great tiers of defensive line, and allow your team to compete against those higher end tiers of defensive lines, like you came up with against Kansas City and their big rotational pass rush with Chris Jones leading the way. And finally, pick 32, the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Yet again, another team that just needs a receiver, and unfortunately, with the news of Rashee Rice, I think they're gonna be forced to take receiver, whether they even want to or not, here in the first round, unless the positional value is just too great in every player that slips to them. I have seen a mock draft that has Brock Bowers falling all the way to 32, and that'd be the greatest thing ever, just to laugh about, seeing Patrick Mahomes have Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers. However, I have them taking Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, Georgia. McConkey is just that annoying, physically gifted kid that somehow just makes plays on the field. You see the size. You see the shiftiness. You see the speed. And you're like, okay. And then he turns little 9-yard garbage routes into 17 and 20-yard yak plays. Or takes little screens that should be dead at 3 yards and turns them into 12. McConkey's a very reliable target. And especially since Rashee Rice was taking more of that role for them, they need that. And they just signed Hollywood Brown to be their field stretcher. So you need to go get more reliable, across the middle, tough plays. You can do that with Ladd McConkey, which is why I have them taking him at 32. But that there, folks, is the entire first round of the draft. I'm going to take a quick break here until we get to picks 33 to 100, because we still have rounds 2 and 3 to go here, but that's going to be far more rapid fire. But before we do that, as I said, let's take a break, and I'm going to ask yourself, do us a favor, help us out. Go to our Etsy shop, ptecreative.etsy.com. Treat yourself to some fun merch. If you go over to ptecreative.com, you can find all cool merchandise. We got t-shirts, we got hats, we got hoodies, we got stickers. Fun stuff. You're a fiction fan, we've got something for you. You're a football fan, we got something for you. You're a Pokemon fan, we sure as hell got something for you. If you just want cool stuff to make yourself look good, we got it for you. Go check it out. Go help yourself out. Go to ptecreative.etsy.com. And as always, use that promo code BLISS, BLISS, at checkout to take 20% off any order of 2 items or more. Treat yourself to some fun stuff over at ptecreative.etsy.com. But back to it, friends. I'm going to just kind of rapid fire the rest of this draft here. Go through, see what you can. I have to take the glasses off for this one. My gosh. Because, well, let me try something here. Let's try something here. Of course. Dumb Excel doesn't want to work with the shortcuts right now for some reason. But that's okay, because I have the entire draft in an Excel sheet right here for all you fine folks of the internet. Now, we are on to the second round. The second round is really another place where you're going to see a lot of really, really important moves 4 teams. And it's the first place you're going to see 3 teams pick, because we have 3 teams without first pick in Carolina, who has pick 33. We have Houston, and we have Cleveland also only having second round picks this year. So we're going to kind of go rapid fire here. Round 2. Instead of going by team, I think I'll do it in order just so I can give you the best possible options that I have for everybody here with as much accuracy as I possibly can give. Now, pick 33, Carolina, they need help. They just straight up need help. It's a team that they're bereft of talent. But one thing they're super bereft at is the wide receiver position. Adam Thielen's their only reliable target. They did just get Deontay Johnson. But you got to go help Bryce Young. Got to go help your guy out. So I have them taking Keon Coleman, wide receiver, out of Florida State. If you have followed the other pods here, I adore Keon Coleman. I think he's phenomenal talent. I just love the way he plays. I think he's a number 1 receiver. And I think he's tremendous. Go help Bryce Young. Get yourself Keon Coleman. 34, New England. They got to protect their new quarterback. So they're going to go Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle out of Arizona. 35, Arizona. I told you, hey, they can go take a corner now. I didn't do that. I doubled down and said, fuck it. We're going to have a passing attack here. A.D. Mitchell fell down the board. So I have them taking Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. Again, hell of a player that can really help your team out. And a lot of people believe he could be a number 1 guy. I don't necessarily see that, but he's a hell of a playmaker. He could do a lot of good things for you, so it's a good idea to go do that. Pick 36, we have Washington staying pat. They just took their quarterback. They need offensive line help as well. You need to go protect that new quarterback, especially if it's going to be a running threat like Jaden Daniels, who likes to take hits, so you do have to think about that. So I have them taking Kingsley Suamataia, offensive tackle, BYU. Now, pick 37 was an interesting one for me. As I said, we got corners falling down the board. One thing that's really smart is, I mentioned Green Bay before. And it's going to sound like a homer pick. It's not meant to be a homer pick. It's simply to look at where the board's falling and see value. Value is the biggest thing that you can think about when it comes to the NFL draft. It's the most important thing by far. So one thing that you need to think about is where you get players. If they fall, you go aggressively and you take them before they're taken by somebody else. Or if you don't see the value where you're at that matches what your board says, you trade back, accrue more capital, and take more swings. So I have Green Bay getting a little bit aggressive here, which is something that they do. Philadelphia does. A lot of the good front offices across the league do, which is when first round guys fall into the second round, they get aggressive to go get them. So I have Green Bay trading up with the LA Chargers. So we have the Chargers trading pick 37 for pick 41. They also take 169 and 219. Which is a little hard to hear and say after I just watched Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, say, oh yeah, we have 11 picks. I'd like 13 or 14 or more. I mean, I love that mentality, but you're already kind of controlling a huge piece of the draft. Go get a positional value when you got it. I haven't taken Nate Wiggins' corner out of Clemson. If a guy with that much speed, that much ability falls to that spot, someone's going to gobble him up, and it should be a playoff contender that has good picks and good value to go get him. And like I said, next pick, I have Denver taking Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon. Here, Tennessee has to trade out. They trade for really good value, though. Tennessee trades 38 for 76, 121, and a 2025 second-round pick. I told you, Denver has a plan here with the idea of what they're doing. Bo Nix is a guy who's most likely to fall out of round 1. Because say what you will about Michael Penix Jr. in the health situation, Penix is far more physically gifted than Bo Nix. It's just factual. So you have to think about that as you do that. Which is why I have Denver going to get Bo Nix in the second. Value matches, you still get that first round player. And because of the additional picks, this isn't a killer for giving up so many picks. And next year, it's okay to sacrifice one if you get your quarterback now. And they believe in Bo Nix in this situation, so they go Bo Nix. 39, you got Braylon Trice, edge out of Florida State, going to Carolina. Again, Carolina just needs players at this point. And then Washington. Washington was the first logical one to take another corner, as they need corner help as well. However, Nate Wiggins doesn't fall to him. Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to them at 40 in this situation, the corner from Alabama. Now, the LA Chargers, they just traded down with Green Bay. They picked up 2 additional picks just to trade down 4 spots. Really smart trade on the Chargers' part. They want to really build themselves in the image of Jim Harbaugh. So they go Peyton Wilson, linebacker, NC State. They want to be tough. They want to be physical. They want to go attack. That is the point of a Jim Harbaugh team. That's why they go do that. Pick 42, Houston, Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M. Those are really the back-to-back, the only 2 linebackers that are worth a spot this high, but others may have different values on them. That's really consensus, is those are the only 2 guys that are worthwhile to get into this range. Now, 43, counterproductive, because I don't think this is a wise move in terms of the skill players they already have. However, Atlanta can't help themselves, so they take Troy Franklin. Oh my God. Wide receiver, Oregon. And it's something that they need to fix heavily. But they can't help themselves, so they go and take the wide receiver out of Oregon. Again, 44, I have another trade. Las Vegas trades pick 44 for pick 50 and pick 120 with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, if they do anything right, it's their front office just loves fleecing people in trades, taking advantage of players for the right values, and they just seemingly cannot help themselves with Georgia defenders, so they take Kamari Lassiter, cornerback, Georgia. Now we're on to pick 25. New Orleans, like I said, they have an offensive line problem. It's the biggest thing they have. So they go take Christian Haynes, interior offensive lineman, UConn. 46, you got Chris Abrams-Drain, cornerback Mizzou, going over to Indianapolis. Like I said in the first round, you need defensive backfield help in Indianapolis. However, Brock Bowers is a way too valuable a player not to take him to help out your quarterback. You can go address your guy with a fringe first-round talent in Chris Abrams-Drain in the middle of the second. Smart pickup on their part. 47, I got another trade. The New York Giants trade back. They trade 47 for pick 52 and 155 and 213 with the LA Rams. And the LA Rams select the other Mizzou corner, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback out of Missouri, to add to that defensive backfield, which does need help in Los Angeles. Now we go to Buffalo. Buffalo here got a major trade with Jacksonville. Now, if I can, because I'm missing my note here, so it's going to drive me insane. Got it here. So, Buffalo trades up. Jacksonville trades pick 48 for pick 60, pick 60, pick 133, and 163. Buffalo needs a wide receiver. You need a guy that can go make plays. A guy who can go do that for them, in their opinion, in this mock draft is Malachi Corley, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. A good pickup that could really go help them. Which is just a smart idea to go forth. Like I said, you need to go get a playmaker. Go do it and go take some players. But they need more help than just wide receiver, which is why I had them go Cooper DeJean in the first round. Now we're cruising on this second round, and that is okay. But I want to be able to share all this work with you guys and share the love draft that we have here. Now, pick 49, I have Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle, Michigan, going over to Cincinnati. Cincinnati wants to plug up that defensive line. I really considered having them take Byron Murphy. However, Quinyon Mitchell falls to them. You got to take the value, and that is what we do over here on pick 49. Now, pick 50, Las Vegas. I truly didn't mean this to just be pair up buddies, but I'm having a lot of pair up buddy moments here in this draft, or interesting little coincidences. Las Vegas, they need help in a few different spots. Quarterback is the most obvious thing that they need to improve. However, how do you ingratiate yourself to your quarterback? You add another skill position player. You have Devontae Adams. That's great. But you don't have another player that really, really, really scares you. Add another dimension to your wide receiver room. So I have them taking Jalen Polk, wide receiver out of Washington. I really do love the idea in lower rounds when you're not spilling value for them, pairing up players that already work really well together. I've shown that because you have, especially with those important positions, you have an ingratiated and built-in chemistry with them to be far more successful and comfortable right away. You know Devontae Adams is going to get targets in Las Vegas. That's not a problem. But go add some more versatility to your offense and go help out your quarterback with someone they're familiar with. And in my opinion, the more important part with the pick, Jalen Polk's just a good receiver. I really like Jalen Polk. He's worth that pick. So at pick 50, Las Vegas, after a trade down, takes Jalen Polk, wide receiver, Washington. Now, pick 51. This is where it was a little difficult. Pittsburgh, like I said, they need help. They just lost Deontay Johnson. They want to establish identity. They love size. They love physicality. Guy who has that and fits that Pittsburgh mold. Xavier Legette, wide receiver, South Carolina. Add that to George Pickens. Add that to your guys that have the need to throw deep, which is Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to a T. Both of them have the same thing. If they could throw it deep, they're going to. And they throw a pretty deep ball. They're good at it. So I understand it. So Pittsburgh takes the big guy in Xavier Legette, wide receiver of South Carolina. 52. The New York Giants, after a trade down, they need to go help their secondary. They need to help a lot of their team. Let's be honest here. They have Dexter Lawrence. They have Kayvon Thibodeau. They have Deonte Banks. Their defense has pieces, but they did just lose Xavier McKinney, which is a big loss. You just addressed your offensive concerns, which is tremendous here, folks. That is very, very important. However, apologies there, folks. Had a little sneezing fit, if you will. However, you need more help on that defense. You just addressed your offense. Now go address your defense with the guy who's really going to go help you. I have Kalen Bullock, safety out of USC. The other thing is this. It's very hard to do these rounds. I'll be the first to tell you that. You're fitting need with player most of the time. However, the one thing that's really important, it doesn't matter which database you use, unless you are the official authority on the team, every team's going to like different players and what they need. But Kalen Bullock, by many people's standards, is a good safety prospect, so Giants take him here. 53, Philadelphia. Take Cooper Beebe, interior offensive lineman, Kansas State. They just lost Jason Kelsey. They're going to need a replacement. Beebe's got a lot of size, which they love in Philadelphia. It's a smart pickup on their point, so they go Cooper Beebe, interior offensive lineman, Kansas State. Now, Cleveland, the last team to have their first pick in this year's draft after Houston picked at 42, which is the Minnesota pick. Cleveland here takes Christian Jones, offensive tackle, Texas. Jedrick Wills has had some health issues. You have other players on that offensive line who can use some flexing. They have a good offensive line. It's not that they don't. But they need to start thinking about fluidity, trading pieces out, keeping that line stable, and you need to address the fact that Deshaun Watson just needs to stay upright. Otherwise, that trade's going to ultimately be the biggest failure of all time, and it's already kind of being considered one of the biggest failure trades of all time. Anyways, if you want a chance of that, you need to protect him, so that's why they go Christian Jones, offensive tackle, Texas. 55, Miami. We're going to go Rook or Horo, which is one of the best names I've ever heard. Defensive lineman, Clemson. You just lost Christian Wilkins. Important to place that. Dallas, Gabriel Murphy, edge, UCLA. Tampa Bay, Javon Baker, wide receiver, UCF. Go back to Green Bay. They take Michael Hall Jr., defensive lineman, Ohio State. A lot of people have slept on Michael Hall Jr. He's a good player. He's one of those guys that when you're watching tape, you just go, "Who's that guy?" You just note him. He's not like the guy that's gonna flash and go, "Holy shit, this guy's everywhere." But every time you watch it, he's just making plays. Those are the kind of guys you want to get in the round two. I want to shout out him. It's not just because I have him going. He's a good prospect, and I do like him. Houston getting a second one here. Adisa Isaac, edge, Penn State. Again, they got a really good at getting those positional pieces, but they want to have a defensive rotation, especially under a defensive coach like D'Amico Ryans, comes from San Francisco, that has that, we need a bunch of guys that can rotate in and out and create pressure. Smart to do. So that's why they go with another edge player after they did just pick up Danielle Hunter. Jacksonville. A lot of people may say this is a reach. This is from the trade down from 48 with Buffalo. They take Cedric Van Pran Granger, interior offensive lineman, Georgia. Was there some laughing reasons to do this because of the name? Yes. However, this is where you start seeing some wild stuff, and that just felt like a very Jaguar pick. I admittedly don't know enough about the guy to really speak to it, but this is such a Jacksonville thing to do, to go take some weird offensive lineman, and I'd love to go see it, so why not? Sometimes you just gotta have fun. Detroit, they take Jatavion Sanders, tight end out of Texas, who another big-time athlete. They want to add some more versatility. You do have to think about that because your offense is humming really well with Jared Goff. But adding that one little extra layer could bring you over the top where you don't stop in the NFC Championship game, get over the hump to the Super Bowl. And it helps with your run game. Getting a big athlete like that with Jatavion Sanders, smart pickup with Detroit. And 62, we have T'Vondre Sweat, defensive lineman, Texas. Now, here's a guy that's getting taken off of draft boards. He did just get a driving while intoxicated charge in Texas. T'Vondre Sweat is a badass. You watch him and Byron Murphy, it's just back and forth, play after play after play. Sweat is a giant who can really attack the line of scrimmage. There are going to be some that go, oh, no, undraftable. Guys like that always sneak into teams that are really good with really good structure because they feel that they can help them out and develop them into a better player and person. And that's where guys like that need to go. I don't know enough about T'Vondre Sweat's character to say he's a total idiot for doing that and he's a complete fuck up. I don't know. It could have just been a bad choice led to some circumstances that absolutely suck. That could be the case, though, too. But it is such a Baltimore pick to capitalize on people saying, nope, can't take him. And to get a badass player like T'Vondre Sweat at the back of round 2, after you kind of got stuck at the end of round 1, not necessarily getting exactly what you needed, you can go help yourself out and get a great player in T'Vondre Sweat in the back of the second round at 62. San Francisco, 63. They take Dwayne Carter, defensive lineman Duke, which is another big one for them because they need more rotational pieces after they lost a few on their defensive line. And finally, rounding out round 2, Kyrie Jackson, cornerback, Oregon, going to Kansas City. They need to replace L'Jarius Sneed. Kyrie Jackson has a similar size profile to Sneed, a little bit taller actually. But it's guys like that Kansas City molds really well into corners, is that size profile and that athleticism profile, which is the reason I did that. Now, I will say, I said I was going to do complete round 3. I think it's not necessarily the most interesting thing here, so I'm just going to highlight some bigger moves that could help out a viewer as well as we go forward, and we're about to finish the pod here because we are an hour and a half into this one. So Carolina, right at 65, they take another wide receiver in Roman Wilson, who's a guy that a lot of people think can go higher than he probably is being mocked to do so right now. Big play guy out of Michigan. Roman is kind of the guy for J.J. McCarthy. But again, Carolina needs to go get themselves a wide receiver core. They have Deontay Johnson. They have Adam Thielen. They just picked up Keon Coleman in this mock draft, but go get another one, Roman Wilson. It's smart. Then you can really go, okay, took care of our offensive line in free agency. We took care of our wide receivers in the draft. Now we can really focus on total team value for the rest of the draft here for Carolina, which desperately needs help. Pick 66. It's funny I said, I'm not going to do all of it, and then I'm going pick by pick right here. But here, I have a trade. I have Arizona trading down to 70 with the New York Giants because the Giants select Spencer Rattler, quarterback out of South Carolina. I do like Rattler's tape. I think he's a good developmental prospect. The Giants need help. And if you can't get around one guy, you got to go think long-term development. And if it works, great. Then you might have your Daniel Jones solution on the cheap. If not, then you have to look to next year's draft, and that's a little bit more of a crapshoot because you never know if you're going to really like those guys until you get truly into the deep evaluation process. They take Spencer Rattler here, take a flyer on him, and all it costs them is a 5th-round pick next year. Smart to go get a developmental prospect like that, my opinion. So you go get Spencer Rattler. Now we go LA Chargers at 69, taking the first running back off the board, which is Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas. He did just have a knee injury, which is understandable, but like I said, you're rebuilding the image of your team. He's a dynamic runner. He gets the chance. It's Jim Harbaugh. He wants to run the ball. Trenches, line of scrimmage, think that for the Chargers. I really think they're a real good logical option to take a running back when you go forth and do those kinds of things. Now, some other guys I just want to highlight here. Las Vegas 77 taking Jeremiah Trotter in my current mock draft. Really good thumper linebacker out of Clemson. I really like Trotter when I watch the tape. He's going to fall, but I like Trotter quite a bit, and again, can add some more attitude to that Vegas defense that needs it outside of Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins. Then you have a second-level player that can go attack like that. Smart move. And then at 79, I have Atlanta taking Mike Sanderstill, the corner out of Michigan. He's an interesting guy if you don't know about him. Really, really fun, because he played receiver for 3 years at Michigan and then transitioned over to corner. I don't know if I have Sanders still falling here. One of the things I always do in a mock draft, if you want to think logically, there's always those guys that are pegged to be higher end picks that always fall a round or two from where they're mocked. I just pick Sanders still because he's a little bit of an odd size wise, and with the wide receiver changeover gimmick, it's not a gimmick, it's football. It's just a bad wrestling terminology use on my part, though. But with that, it could be very easy to say, I don't know if he really fits what we want, but someone's going to take a flyer on the athleticism because he is a super athlete. So I have Atlanta taking him at 79. That is cornerback Mike Sanderstill out of Michigan. Now, another guy that might be considered a fall here, Seattle picks up Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota, widely considered to be the best safety prospect, who's a fringe first, top of the second kind of guy. He's the best of the safety class in most people's opinion. I have him falling all the way to 81. Again, it's not a great safety class. A lot of people are going to think just let him fall, go from there, which isn't inherently a wrong thing to do. If the board works out that way, great. There's some other picks that I'd love to say, but I think the most valuable one here is to end, like I said, with round 1 and the New York Jets. You need to think future 2. Can't just think, oh, well, Aaron's here, so our 10 years is great. You're looking at max 3 years of a change. But here's another issue. What happened last year when Aaron Rodgers went down? Oh, yeah, that's right. They went to shit because they didn't have a quarterback. Zach Wilson just got traded, so even the guy that used to be in the system, who at least knew the system, isn't there anymore. You don't have your fallback. You need to get a backup quarterback, and this is good. You can get a developmental prospect. So I have the Jets trading with the last pick in the 3rd round. I have Washington traded pick 100 for pick 111 and a 2025 4th round pick which is a good pickup on both teams' parts, in my opinion. You already used your third, so it's kind of just like a trade up, anyways. You have the Jets selecting Michael Pratt, quarterback out of Tulane. Really popular developmental crossback pick here with Pratt. You get a potential backup to Aaron Rodgers. You get a guy who's clearly not a threat to Aaron Rodgers, which seems to be the most logical thing that happens in all Aaron Rodgers-led teams, is he doesn't have a good backup because theoretically you don't want a quarterback controversy, which it's not going to happen with a top 10 quarterback of all time anyways. But the Jets have more insurance policy. If Aaron goes down, they get a development quarterback for the future. It's a win-win. And then you can take the back half of your draft, go take some flyers on athletes and as pass catchers. You did just pick up Mike Williams, so you're not as desperate in the pass catcher situation as a lot of people think. So that is why I have Michael Pratt, quarterback out of Tulane, going to the Jets at pick 100 after a trade up. That, my friends, is going to do it for today's episode of the ONETA Football Show. I really appreciate everyone watching, everyone listening out there on Spotify. If you're catching us on YouTube, go check out some other stuff. Glad we could help you out with that. If you're catching it on Spotify, go check out. We do have our first video podcast over on Spotify as well with the ONETA Show. Did some Mario Party games that you can play yourself if you watch or listen. You can do one game just by listening, which is pretty fun. Hope you guys really enjoy that as well. As always, go check our socials. Helps us out even more. Go to ptcreative.etsy.com. Please. I'm here for money, bro. More than anything else. Have yourself a great day. Enjoy your team's draft no matter what happens. That is where the team of the future of your team comes from, is this draft process. Go get some friends together and enjoy the draft. That is what I'll be doing. I'll be spending it in a New York Giants themed garage with my boys out in Jersey. It's going to be a lot of fun. So go have yourself some fun. Happy draft, everybody. Happy ONETA Show early. Thank you so much for listening and watching once again. Peace, love, and hugs. Be out.